The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Minneapolis City Council will now begin.
Council President Bender, you are muted.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Bender. I'm the president of the Minneapolis City Council. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting for Friday, December 18th, which is our final meeting of 2020. Before we proceed, I'll note that this meeting has remote participation by council members and city staff as authorized under the provisions of the Minnesota Open Meeting Law, Section 13D.021, due to the declared state of local public health emergency. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll to verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Present.
Councilmember Gordon.
Here.
Councilmember Cano. Councilmember Reich.
Present.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Here.
Councilmember Schrader.
Here.
Councilmember Osman. Councilmember Cunningham.
Present.
Councilmember Ellison.
Present.
Councilmember Goodman.
Present.
Councilmember Cano. Councilmember Osman. Vice President Jenkins.
Here.
President Bender.
Here.
There are 11 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. The agenda for today's meeting is before us. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman. Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman. Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That carries and the agenda is adopted. Next, we have the minutes from our adjourned meeting on December 2nd, as well as our regular meeting from December 4th for acceptance. May I have a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved, Madam President.
Second.
Thank you. And we'll note for the record that we've been joined by Councilmember Cano. Clerk will please call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman. Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman. Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That carries. And those minutes are accepted. Next, we have referrals of petitions, communications, and reports to the proper committees. May I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman. Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman. Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That carries and those matters are referred. Next, we'll move to the presentation of 3 honorary resolutions for today's meeting. The first honorary resolution we have is recognizing the service and leadership of our city assessor, Patrick Todd. Council Vice President Jenkins will read this honorary resolution, and once it has been read, I'll invite folks to make any further comments. Council Vice President.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm so happy to be able to read this resolution today, honoring Patrick Todd for his service and dedication to the city of Minneapolis. I have had the distinct pleasure to work with Mr. Todd over many years, and have known him to be just professional, always with a smile and service to our residents to help them understand their assessments and really and help us as the council understand what's going on as well. So it is with my great honor to read this resolution. Whereas Patrick Todd began his employment with the city of Minneapolis as an assessor, on November 13th, 1990, was promoted to supervisor July 1, 2002, and was appointed to the position of city assessor on June 27, 2005, and will retire after 30 years of dedicated service. And whereas during his tenure with the city of Minneapolis, Mr. Todd served on various work groups, task forces, and committees within the city enterprise, including the Facilities, Space, and Asset Management Committee. And whereas, in addition to his service to the city, Mr. Todd was an active member in the Minnesota Association of Assessing Officers, including his service on its legislative committee and as the Region 4 president and ultimately an association president in 2018. And whereas Mr. Todd has been an active member of the International Association of Assessing Officers and the highest association of assembly industry professionals in the world, and served as that body's 2018 local host task force co-chair when the city of Minneapolis hosted its international conference. And whereas Mr. Todd earned his senior accredited Minnesota Assessor SAMA designation from the Minnesota State Board of Assessors in November 1994, earned his Senior Residential Appraiser, SRA, designation from the Appraisal Institute. And whereas Mr. Todd provided leadership and direction during the housing volatility resulting from the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, as well as the aftermath of local emergencies, including the 2011 tornado that devastated North Minneapolis, the local economic effect caused by the COVID-19 global health pandemic, and the civic unrest following the death of George Floyd, among others. And whereas Mr. Todd has served as an expert witness representing the city of Minneapolis in the Minnesota Tax Court, and whereas Mr. Todd has earned the respect of elected policymakers, government executives, and industry professionals, and is recognized for his expert knowledge of the laws, policies, and programs related to the property assessment and market valuation, and for his generosity in giving his time and talents to the benefit of the city and its residents. And whereas Mr. Todd shared his love for family and showed genuine interest in the people around him, now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and city council, in recognition of his immense contributions to the city of Minneapolis, do hereby present this resolution to Patrick Todd, together with the most sincere thanks and well wishes upon this occasion of his retirement. Madam President, I am sure that if we were all in person, there would be a loud, thunderous round of applause. And with that, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. We have Mayor Fry in queue first. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. And Council Vice President, you hit the nail on the head. Although we can't hear that thunderous round of applause, let me say, Mr. Patrick Todd, you are so deserving. 30 years worth of excellent service to our city. I have seen the passion that you have for serving our residents in every single one of the interactions that I've ever had with you. And although it's this very specific niche within the city, it's a niche that is so necessary to just our city's ability to continue functioning at all. I had the honor of attending the International Conference of Assessing Officers back in 2018 when Minneapolis hosted, and it's a slice of life. And it's an unbelievable slice of life. It's people that care so deeply about their respective cities, but also care so deeply about the craft of assessing. And I can't say that I've got a lot of interest in the craft of assessing, but we're so it's so wonderful to be able to rely on experts like Mr. Todd. And at that conference, you saw the very deep respect that every single person in that room had for Patrick Todd. He has been a mentor to so many people. He's helped to bring up through the ranks the next city assessors for years and perhaps even generations to come. He's helped to inspire a level of interest in the assessor's office, which is not an area that you traditionally think about inspiring interest in. And so, Patrick, your legacy lives on. We're so proud to have worked with you. Thank you for your 30 years of excellent service to our city. It is so deeply appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Carl.
Thank you, Madam President. I have had the good fortune of working for many years throughout my 10 years here with the city with Patrick Todd very closely, primarily centered on the work that we do around the annual appeals process for property assessments and market valuations. The clerk plays a very small role in that process and partners very closely with the city assessor and his team. So we've gotten to know each other fairly well. And what always stood out to me is that Patrick Todd is an optimist. He's always focused on possibility, and he's quick to find a silver lining, even in some of the more dire situations, I think, that we've been involved in together. And so in many cases, the position that Patrick Todd holds as city assessor could make him out as one of the city's bad guys, because his work is focused on people's property taxes. And no matter how much he tries to educate them that it's really about value and not taxes, people think about taxes. And yet he is so good, as the council vice president said, at dealing with people and listening to them. And every year he is here for our budget hearings late into the evenings. This year we weren't in person, but Mr. Todd was still on the phone. He was still listening, checking in, sent me several texts. Are there people I can follow up with? Are there people who have questions about their property taxes or their assessments? Can you send me their contact information? So he's always listening. He wants to help people with their concerns and issues, is a true public servant. He smiles, he's cheerful. And I know that in his personal life, he's a bit of a tinkerer. He likes to remodel homes. And I think that approach sums up what I think of the person I've gotten to know over these years. He tinkers with things to make them better. He's happiest when he's able to get personally involved in the work, and he wants to work hands-on with things to make improvements. And he's certainly done that over his many years in the city assessor's office, including his leadership of that office as the city assessor. He's raised the bar for the standards in his office, as noted both in the resolution read by Council Vice President and in the mayor's comments. He is known in his industry, certainly here locally in the metro area, across the state of Minnesota and across the United States, as a leader in property assessments and in that work. He's respected for his deep knowledge, and he's easy to work with. So I know that the city has benefited from your leadership, Patrick. Your department is stronger and better because of you. and you will be missed by me, by all of your colleagues from the city's executive team. I wish you the best in your retirement, knowing that you'll be somewhere tinkering here and there in your travels. So be well and be happy. You've earned it, and thank you for your service, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ruff.
Thank you, Madam President. Patrick, I just want to say that customer service orientation carries through not just externally, but internally. The way you've treated your colleagues, including the way you've treated me, whenever I call or when I email you, within an hour or two, you were back to me. And you did that out of a concern for the enterprise as a whole, and also for me personally, to know that if I had a problem, you wanted to be there, right there with me solving that. And that is, in my mind, high praise for the way that you treat others within City Hall as well as outside of City Hall. So thank you for that, Patrick.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam President. I apologize for jumping in the queue a little bit late. My computer force restarted. So I just want to say, Mr. Todd, thank you so much for your service. I wanted to really highlight two things. The first, I just want to make sure that I say how grateful that I am for your career pathways program that you built in your department to ensure that there are more assessors of color, an opportunity that maybe a lot of folks don't necessarily think of when they're looking for a career in the public sector. And so creating that space for folks to actually see themselves reflected in maybe an opportunity they hadn't thought of before is really amazing. And so I'm very grateful to you and to the staff who helped make that a real possibility. And I just want to share a story because it just really sticks with me so much about the kind of service that we have been fortunate as a city for you to provide to us for so long. During the first year, we were reappointing department heads. You came before the city council, and I asked, I like to ask the department heads, what is your favorite part about this job? And I remember you got a big smile on your face and like chuckled joyfully, and you're like, I love that question. And then talked about the opportunity to be able to engage community, which a lot of folks wouldn't think of necessarily from the assessor's office, but there's a lot of opportunity to be able to engage folks and bring them along in the process and help problem solve for folks and provide them good customer service. That just made me feel so warm and fuzzy to have somebody who so clearly loved their job and so joyfully answer that question. That just really has always stuck with me. And you still have that same light in your eyes, bright smile beyond that. And so I'm so grateful for you and all that you've done for the city, for our constituents. You will be missed, but best of luck and all the joy in your next endeavors.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. As we close, Mr. Todd, I'll welcome any comments that you want to make, but I'll just also add my deep thanks and appreciation for your service. You've been here longer than all of us, elected officials by a long shot, and I think we really all benefit from that institutional knowledge and the relationships that are built over those years of service. I know that you have really provided so much to support to all of our constituents as they call with questions. And I also have also appreciated the way that the small office has taken on the responsibility that we all share to create a more equitable city. And Councilmember Cunningham gave one example. I know when I first took office, I was asking a lot of questions about how state law and other industry practices affect renters in our community. And when we passed ordinances and policies that are working to support renters, we were able to connect your office to the folks who are working on the 4D tax program and really help disseminate that information and really create that cross-departmental partnership that helps us all meet our goals around race equity and about housing stability and safety for all our residents. So just another example about the ways that Your office has been able to be part of that all hands on deck approach, and your leadership is appreciated and will be missed. Would you like to say anything before we close?
Yes, Madam President. Thank you very much. And for all the council members, I really enjoyed working with you. Your compliments are just flattering and actually overwhelming, and I just can't thank you enough. So I want to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes just thanking those people that have really made me successful. And if I could just, if you could just bear with me, I just want to make sure that I thank Mayor Fry, you, Council President Bender, and as well as all the council members for allowing me to serve. Your faith and trust in me to lead the assessor's office for 16 years has allowed me to work on very important initiatives, initiatives to improve the annual assessment for property owners, to increase the transparency in the work that we're doing, in addition to addressing the race and equity issues, not only in the city of Minneapolis, but definitely in our department. And I think we were making some really good headway. And I know it's very well supported within my department. So thanks for your support. I really feel good about what we've accomplished and the future of my department and the city. I want to thank my peers, the department heads, their directors. We would meet frequently, and we had some great laughs. We shared some tears, but mostly we had countless hours of lively discussions of how to make Minneapolis a great place to work, to live, and to enjoy for all people. And I'll miss the camaraderie and the friendship. I want to thank my leadership team, my director, Rebecca Malmquist, my manager of assessment services, Nancy Wojak, my chief appraiser, Brian Kieser, and my 2 supervisors, Brian Messer and Tim Mulvin. These people are the best of the best. They are so talented. Any one of them could go out tomorrow and be the city or a county assessor any place in the state of Minnesota, but they choose to work for Minneapolis, which speaks volumes to their dedication and the commitment to the city of Minneapolis and its residents. I'd be remiss, I really would be remiss if I didn't thank my staff. My department has an excellent reputation within the community with property owners, business owners, homeowners, and neighborhood groups. This reputation was built by my staff with every taxpayer that they met, with every phone call that they answered, and with every email that they wrote. Thank you to my staff that that this job their work made my job very easy. I want to thank my family, both the past and present, for their love and support for my 30-year career. If it wasn't for them, it wouldn't have been nearly as fun, and I really appreciated them cheering me on. I look forward to spending more time with my 3 girls and their families. My eldest does live in Australia, and I do hope to spend 3 months each year being a grandpa to her 2 kids. In closing, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Casey Carl, who's been the unsung hero in my life. I've learned more about civics, politics, democracy, assessing at times in the short time that I've had to work with Casey. And I just think that you are the best. So congratulations, Casey, or thanks for being there for me. And then, Madam President, that's really all I have to say. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the long nights during budget season. Thanks to your family for supporting your efforts in our city. And we wish you all the best and all the joyful perks of retirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will move to our next honoring resolution, and this is recognizing the service and leadership of our budget director, Micah Intermill. I've asked Councilmember Palmisano to read this honoring resolution as chair of the budget committee, and we will be able to make our comments after the resolution. Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, President Bender. I do have the pleasure of reading Micah Intermill's parting resolution. I did want to open by just saying in not resolution speak how much we've all appreciated Micah Intermill. Director, you've made public finance very accessible to the public, which is like the highest order of good around here. You've made the reasons for our budget and all of our budget deliberations very knowable. That gives us power. That gives everybody in Minneapolis an opportunity to participate. So whether it was technical issues or emergency issues, Micah has done 5 budgets during his time here, and he's been so patient with us. Your family has certainly sacrificed to be that accessible as a public servant, and we really appreciate it. So here, I just need to get to the resolution page. Here we go. Whereas Micah Intermill began his employment as budget director of the city of Minneapolis in 2017 and will depart the city having seen it through an arduous year of rebudgeting and reprioritizing. And whereas during his tenure, Director Intermill advised city leaders on highly impactful and often highly charged financial and policy decisions, always with the long-term best interests of the city as his central focus, conducting himself with integrity and honesty, which earned the trust of elected policymakers and department executives across the city enterprise, and recognition as an excellent, thoughtful partner and leader who integrated budget and performance management in support of the city's ability to make data-informed resource allocation decisions. And whereas Director Intermill's integrity, results orientation, and focus on the bottom line performance of the city was matched by keen insight and an even sharper wit. And whereas Director Intermill was able to explain complex budgetary transactions in true plain language to mayors, city council members, members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation, and most importantly, Minneapolis residents, to ensure broad awareness of and understanding about our financial health and budgetary information publicly accessible in new ways, prioritizing the transparency needed for good governance. And whereas Director Intermill envisioned and created a 21st century budget office, doing the hard work of implementing new systems and technologies, refining processes, broadening access, and helping to educate policymakers and residents on budgetary implications of policy decisions. And whereas Director Intermill mastered the art of making the budget team the enterprise equivalent of Switzerland, a neutral party among differing sides of budget issues that also ensured the city operated on time. And whereas Director Intermill oversaw the merger of the capital and operating budget processes, successfully navigating the waters of the long-range capital improvement investment committee. And whereas Director Intermill acted quickly and creatively to mitigate the impact of COVID-19's pandemic on our city's finances, flattening the financial curve and advising elected officials and department leaders. And whereas Director Intermill endeavored to incorporate the city's strategic racial equity plan at all levels of the budget process, thereby increasing enterprise attention to this goal. And whereas Director Intermill has been a valued friend and colleague to many, willing to work through difficult and complex challenges in the office or over a burger and ice cream. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council, in recognition of his significant contributions to the City of Minneapolis and his stewardship of the Budget Office, do hereby present this resolution to Director Micah Intermill, together with our most sincere thanks and appreciation, as well as our best wishes in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Frey.
Thank you, Madam President. Director Intermill, you have done such an incredible job navigating some of the most difficult and complex financial situations that our city has ever faced. Yes, over this last year, it has been, I'm sure it's been a burden in many respects. You've had to go through basically 3 budgets in the course of 1 year. You've approached every single situation with a level of positivity, at least to my face, that I'm sure may not have continued behind closed doors, but you've come into the room ready to work, ready to get the job done for our residents, and you have gotten the job done every step of the way. You know, something that a few people probably know about Micah, unless you've worked with him a whole lot directly, is he likes to speak in analogies. And it's those analogies that enable him to reduce some of the most complex financial items to understandable terms. And I've seen him do that in some of the community-based budget sessions that he's taken part of. I've seen him do that for me when I'm trying to understand some of these more complex formulas that he's throwing up on the whiteboard. But your service to our residents through this most difficult time has been of paramount importance. We would not have gotten through this but for your work, Mr. Intermill. And we I, as a mayor, and we collectively as a city cannot thank you enough. You're going to go on to do some tremendous things, no doubt in my mind. I hope you keep in touch with us here back at the city.
Thank you. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Council President. Micah, I'm really sorry to see you leaving. I think we have started something here, and I think we have a lot more work to do. I think the work that you've done to help us as policymakers really understand what the choices are that we're really making in the budget in a way that lets us really consider and reflect our city's values in the budgeting process. It is something that we all are really grateful for, and that I hope we continue. I think there's been a real commitment to increasing transparency and increasing the clarity of what budget actions mean and how they're reflected, so that the public can understand what's happening, so that policymakers' intent actually gets reflected in the budget in a meaningful way. Those are no small things. They're very important, and we have a lot more work to do, I think, to continue increasing transparency, to continue increasing participation options, and we will continue that work. We will take inspiration from what you've achieved here, and I wish you the absolute best in your future endeavors. Thank you for all of your work for the city.
Thank you. Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Intermill, I just wanted to congratulate you on your new opportunities. And as many have said, I'm really sad to see you leaving the city of Minneapolis and taking with you all of the financial savvy and awareness that you've helped us to make really critical decisions around how we prioritize our budget to best meet the needs of our residents. And so, best of luck to you in the future. I really am proud to have you as a constituent in the 8th Ward. Throughout my term, and I know you have just relocated, but stayed in the 8th Ward. And so just look forward to many more interactions with you and your family over the years. And as Mayor Fry stated, please stay in touch with us here at the City of Minneapolis. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam President. Micah, you know how much I appreciate you, hopefully, from our exchanges, but I just also want to say, for the public record, how much I am absolutely deeply grateful for you and your service to the city of Minneapolis. I think it's perfectly summed up about you maintaining the budget office as Switzerland. The budget can be one of the most politically, if not the most politically contentious process that we have to navigate as elected officials with the help of city staff. And that could be very challenging. While we all share the same outcome, some of us have different ideas about how to be able to get there, and you help equally, fairly present factually based pathways to be able to operationalize and invest in the various pathways that we see. We wouldn't be able to do this work. We would not have been able to do this work without you. And so I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for the level of responsiveness that you've had. We had you 3 for 3 Ward 4 annual budget overview. I'm so grateful for you doing that year after year. Ward 4 constituents have a better understanding of the budget process, how to get plugged in, because you have been directly involved in that civic engagement process. So I thank you. I'm very sad and sorry to see you go, but I'm also very happy for you as you go off to your next endeavors. I hope that you'll stay in touch. Thanks, Micah, for your service.
Thank you. Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam President. I did just want to pop in here and just say a couple of more personal notes about Micah Intermill. You know, one of Micah's greatest strengths that he gave to us and gave to our city was his financial skills and his financial savvy, but in a way that really helped us stay rooted in our values and stay focused in our goals when we were talking to him. And, you know, as we would get deep in the weeds, he would be good at when he needed to kind of yank us up out of it and really talk about, well, this is what you said matters. I know that we will all really miss Micah's analogies, as Mayor Fry mentioned. My favorites were his corkscrew analogy for biennial budgeting and this really beautiful, creative arrows display that he made that helps to remind me when and how policymakers should be involved in some of the day-to-day budget needs of city departments. I will always remember how enthusiastic Micah was about his travel tips for people road tripping through Nebraska, his home state, and I recommend his travel tips to anybody and their families. His sense of humor was pretty remarkable in his field, and his participation in public discourse and his willingness to participate in all of our ward forums was really benefited a lot of people. So if we were in person, there would actually be hugs, I think, in council chambers today. So I'll just say that, even though, you know, both Micah and I aren't exactly real emotional people in public, I think there would be hugs. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Ruff.
You might be muted, Mr. Ruff.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Micah, I think in the budget world, I just want to say it's pretty rare to use that word creative when we use the word budget at the same time, and especially folks involved in budget. But you are definitely creative. I can think of absolutely dozens of times when I would wander down to your office and say, hey, we have this problem, and how do you think we can address it? And your mind was always ready on the spot to come up with 2 or 3 or 4 responses that were valid, thoughtful, looked not just to the short term, but to the long term. And to me, that is true public service. I also want to add to the list of quotables, though, for Micah, too, is his question on how we, and this is a bit of an inside joke, but I apologize, but I think it's important to say, he asked the question, how can we have ongoing one-times? That was always one thing that I know was both a joke and a seriousness about saying, hey, let's be intentional about our programs. If we're going to commit to provide a service, let's commit long-term. So thank you, Micah. I really have no doubt that you will be back in public service. I have no doubt that you will be benefiting, hopefully, the city of Minneapolis sometime in the future or another jurisdiction with your wisdom and your thoughtfulness. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Ms. Dye.
Congratulations, Micah. Although I only had a chance to work with you for 4 months, I would like to thank you for bringing me up to speed on the 2020 revised budget and then also on the 2021 budget. I know it was a challenging time for the budget office, so I really appreciate you taking the time, you know, as I transitioned into my new role. You know, as you move into your next adventure as a leader, you've really developed your staff to continue the great work you've set in motion. And I thank you for your thoughtfulness, and I wish you all the very best. And this resolution in your honor today is greatly deserved.
Thank you. Micah, I will welcome you to speak, but just want to also offer my own personal thanks for your service. We are going to miss you so much. And as we've heard in the comments, you bring so much heart and humor to this work, but also just a really serious commitment to using the budget to bring to life our values, to think creatively about how our investments meet our goals or don't. You're honest and direct. I think, you know, the way that you've helped inform and educate and inspire policymakers to think about how we can approach the budget as a tool to meet our goals and values as a city is really important and so appreciated. So I'll see if you'd like to say anything before we close.
Thank you, Council President and Council Vice President, Mayor Fry, Chair Palmisano, and Council members. I'm not a quote person, but having attended the Humphrey School and wrapping up this job at the City of Minneapolis, I can't not quote former Mayor Hubert Humphrey. And my favorite quote of his is, the worst thing a person can think is that they made it on their own. And so as I have reminded the council every year, the budget is an all of us thing. It's not a budget office thing. So I do certainly want to thank as Dushani said, the phenomenal team I'm leaving behind that I'm very sad to leave behind in the budget office. I want to thank Mr. Ruff for bringing me to the city, and Lynn Anderson, who is behind the scenes but very important to the work of the city, for introducing me to Mark. I absolutely want to thank my family. I come by public service honestly. My parents are bureaucrats. And it truly is noble, whether you're on the elected side or the staff side. I appreciate everyone at the city for all of the time they put into making this a better place for everybody. Another quote that sticks in my mind is from former Council Vice President Elizabeth Glidden. My first budget was her last budget. And at the dais on adoption night, she said, you know, Mr. Intermill, don't get used to this, because there weren't any tears, there wasn't any fighting, this wasn't a real budget. And I thought to myself, well, that's odd. It certainly shouldn't have to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that we proved that this year. I mean, the city of Minneapolis is facing a lot of big challenges, and we are fortunate to have policymakers who are willing to take them on. And those big challenges come squarely to a head in the budget, which is much more than an exercise of numbers. It's about what are we resourcing and how are we collecting those resources. And I think that I appreciated hearing Council President, Councilmember Fletcher remind us that our goal on every issue shouldn't be a 13-0 vote. It's okay to disagree. And I think it was good to see individual components of this budget come together with some disagreement, because that reflects where we are in Minneapolis today. But most important was a unanimous vote to adopt that budget. And that represents the consensus that is so strongly needed in our politics and policy making today. So I do want to commend the council for getting there. And lastly, I want to thank the people of Minneapolis. Making the budget accessible made a lot of sense to me in my brain, but you know, it was a little bit of a risk. We didn't know if people would engage, and you really have, and that's pretty fantastic. And I know that will continue, and I think that it just will continue to make what is already a phenomenal world-class city a much better place. So thank you again to all of you, and I really do appreciate this honor, no matter how uncomfortable it might be for me in the moment.
Thank you, Micah. Again, you'll be so missed. And as you noted, and I always do, thank you so much to your family for sharing you and the long nights and weekends. I know often during budget time, but not only. And so we appreciated that sacrifice that you have all made for our community. You must stay in touch, so we will see you soon. Thank you. This brings us to our third and final resolution, which is recognizing International Migrants Day. And I will turn this to Council Vice President Jenkins to present the resolution. And I understand that we may have a couple of guests as well who we will invite to speak. Council Vice President.
Thank you, Madam President. And, you know, I do want to just really shout out Ms. Michelle Rivero for bringing this day to my attention and her assistance in developing this resolution, recognizing International Migrants Day in honor of the contributions and challenges faced by migrants in the United States and abroad. Whereas in 1997, Filipino and other Asian migrant organizations began celebrating and promoting December 18th as International Day of Solidarity with Migrants, chosen because it was on December 18th, 1990, that the United Nations adopted the International Convention on the Protections of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of Their Families. And whereas International Migrants Day aims to raise awareness about the efforts, contributions, and human rights of migrants worldwide, as well as the challenges and difficulties of international resettlement. And whereas throughout human history, migration has been integral for individuals and families to overcome adversity in search of a better life and greater opportunity, which has spurred development and created improvements to economic and social conditions across the globe. And whereas migrants make significant contributions, including bringing their culture, new skills, and knowledge to destination locations, and also sending remittances, money, to family and friends back home, therein offering valuable support to not only their destination locations, but also to their locations of origin. And whereas in 2020, despite a highly contagious and lethal global coronavirus pandemic, there are over 16,000 migrants or non-citizens around the country detained in immigration custody by the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE unit, as the Department of Homeland Security. These individuals are not in jail serving time as a punishment for a crime committed, but instead due to their lack of immigration status. And whereas there are 5 county jails holding immigration detainees in Minnesota in cooperation with ICE, including Candy, Ojai, Freeborn, Sherborne, Carver, and Nobles County jails. And whereas earlier this year, a team of physicians wrote to the Department of Homeland Security and members of the United States Congress on the COVID-19 threat posed by immigration detention and the imminent risk to the health and safety of immigrant detainees, as well as the public at large, that there is a direct consequence of detaining populations in congregate settings. And whereas 6 months ago, Mayor Jacob Fry wrote a letter to ICE asking for the immediate release of individuals in immigration detention in county jail facilities in the state of Minnesota who do not pose a risk to public safety, to reduce the impact and the spread of COVID-19 within this population as well as the public at large. And whereas at the time of these letters, there were 0 reported cases of COVID-19 among ICE detainees in Minnesota. And whereas early in the pandemic, Minnesota facilities were spared COVID cases, by summer, there were a smattering of COVID cases in Minnesota facilities holding immigration detainees. And as of December 16th, 2020, there are 21 ICE-confirmed COVID-19 cases among immigration detainees in custody at the Candy Ojai County alone. And whereas without transparency and access to adequate testing, regular medical care, and accurate medical information related to COVID transmissions in detention, it is impossible to truly know the scope of the outbreak of COVID cases in Candy Ojai County Jail or in any other jail holding immigration detainees in the state of Minnesota. And whereas individuals who are in immigration custody and subject to quarantine have limited access to counsel, have little to no control over the access to healthcare, and are at the mercy of their jailers for release of medical records and access to accurate health information. And whereas human rights violations are often founded as a result of an indefinite detention, including harm to mental and physical health, with the impacts of indefinite detention affecting not only the detainees themselves, but their families and communities as well. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the city council do hereby recognize the courage, the perseverance, and contributions of all migrants, denounce the actions of immigration and customs enforcement to detain migrants and non-citizens due to issues around immigration status during the global health crisis, and to call upon all federal, state, and local agencies involved in the detention of immigrants in county jail facilities in the state of Minnesota to, 1, facilitate the immediate release of individuals in immigration custody in various county jail facilities in the state of Minnesota, including Sherburne, Carver, Freeborn, Candy Ojai, and Nobles County jails, in consideration of the concept of liberty as a fundamental constitutional norm. 2, ensure that individuals detained in immigration custody have access to accurate health information and competent and effective health care. 3, facilitate the immediate development of an oversight mechanism staffed by experienced healthcare professionals so that detainees themselves, as well as the public, can be assured that individuals in immigration detention are receiving adequate health care. 4, as immigration detainees represent a non-voluntary congregate setting community, facilitate the provision of COVID-19 vaccine to this detained population in an expedited fashion. And 5, identify and implement any and all alternatives to detention that may exist so as to limit the human rights violations that result from an indefinite detention of migrants who comprise a class of individuals subject to incarceration solely because of the lack of their immigration status. Madam President, I believe that Ms. Rivero may have some additional remarks, as well as some external individuals who would like to speak to this resolution.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Ms. Rivero, are you on the line? We'd be happy to hear your remarks, and we also are excited to invite Kathy Mochio, an immigration attorney and law professor from the University of Minnesota Binger Center for New Americans, and Hannah Lichten, director and co-founder of the Minnesota Immigrant Healthcare Alliance. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. I don't think that Michelle was able to join, but Kathy, do you want to start? Are you here?
Our guests may need to push *6 to unmute their lines, and there's a bit of a delay.
Oh.
So welcome to you both.
Thank you. This is Kathy Mochio, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So thank you very much for this important resolution. I am an assistant professor at the Binger Center for New Americans at the University of Minnesota Law School, where we work with detained immigrants. And I can assure you that the targeting of immigrants within our community is having an adverse impact on the well-being of the community itself. And nowhere is that more apparent than in the detention of immigrants, where folks cut off from family and community languish in jails. It is an opaque and dangerous system that they're swept up into, often for years. And nowhere is that more apparent than now with the outbreak of COVID. Even when ICE is aware that an individual has a comorbidity that places them at risk of serious illness if exposed to COVID, the default is to detain rather than recognize the constitutional standard of liberty. That danger of detention has now become life-threatening for many of the individuals who are trapped in these jails with the rapid spread of COVID. It is bad policy for localities to profit off of the detention of migrants. And I applaud the council's efforts to act to end the mass incarceration of immigration. Our immigration system is opaque and unaccountable. That needs to change. And I ask all to get involved in advocacy to bring transparency to this system. We thank you for your leadership, and I encourage the public to work with advocates and organizations who are dedicated daily to bringing justice to the plight of migrants. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your words and all of your work. Ms. Lichten, would you like to speak next?
Sure. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Good morning. And thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. Thank you, Council Vice President Jenkins, and to the full council for your support of this critically important resolution. My name is Dr. Hannah Lichten. I am a physician in Minneapolis, co-chair of the healthcare advocacy organization Our Stories, Our Health, and a co-founder of the Minnesota Immigrant Health Alliance. Today in Minnesota, we are guilty of violating the basic human rights of our brothers and sisters who are held in ICE detention. The treatment of the detainees in Kandiyohi County during the past weeks is reprehensible. And as a doctor and as a mandated reporter, it is my ethical duty to step in when vulnerable people are being harmed. Because of the jail's disregard of public health guidelines, entire units of detainees in Kandiyohi are now sick with COVID for the crime of not having the right immigration paperwork. And we can't allow this to continue. We know that jail is not a safe place during a pandemic. That's why in Minnesota, we have changed policy to decrease the number of people sent to jail on minor criminal charges. But with their numbers down, several counties in our state have used that empty space to grow their contracts with ICE, filling our jails with people held despite committing no crime. They are treating our immigrant aunties and uncles as a commodity to earn money by filling beds. Our country stripped away the liberty from these people and then failed at meeting even basic standards of public health prevention and health care. Solitary confinement is being used in place of adequate medical care. There is no transparency and even less oversight of the care provided to detainees in our county jails, and we can end this. We today are part of a growing network of advocates, activists, healthcare workers, and religious leaders. We're ready to make sure that our government at the local, state, and federal levels protects the freedom of all people instead of stripping it away. We are asking for ICE detainees to be released, and until that day comes, for our state to ensure that every person held in detention has access to high-quality medical care, adequate COVID prevention, including population limits, and urgent access to the COVID vaccine. And to make sure this is done well, we are asking for the creation of a medical oversight board with the authority to do a meaningful assessment of the medical care provided to people held by ICE in our state. ICE wants these people, our neighbors, our coworkers, people who have migrated from one place to another, to disappear, and we cannot let that happen. So to the council and Mayor Fry, thank you for honoring the humanity of our immigrant communities by standing up for their dignity and basic human rights. And to everyone else listening today, please join us in this fight for justice. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your powerful words and all of your work as well. And thank you to Ms. Michelle Rivero, who is not here, but is the director of our Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, our small but important investment in this work at the city. Would anyone else like to speak about this resolution? Seeing none, thank you again to both of our guests and to Council Vice President for bringing this forward. We will officially adopt this later in the agenda. So this concludes our honorary resolutions and brings us to the new business portion of our agenda. We'll begin with the mayor's final report of the year about the state of our local health emergency, which has been in place since March, addressing the city's response to COVID-19. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the opportunity to share this final, as you mentioned, COVID report for 2020. I will be brief as we've had a number of resolutions and I know you still have business to undergo. We've had 19 emergency regulations to date. I won't read through. Moving on to the health by the numbers, the total approximate number of completed tests thus far have been 5,033,129. That's roughly 700,000 more than last report, and this also includes antigen tests. For Minnesota case information, I will touch on a few of the data points that you see here. The total positive cases have been 389,171. The patients who no longer need to be isolated counts at 358,667. That's 165,000 more than last report, so significantly up, with 4,658 deaths. As for hospitalization, the total cases hospitalized are 20,172. The total cases hospitalized in ICU is 4,353. For Minneapolis case-specific information, the total positive cases are at 26,948. With 1,925 hospitalized, 25,107 recovered, and tragically 317 deceased. There's some Minneapolis demographic data that is there for you. I'm sure questions can be answered, but I will skip ahead. As for the health department situational updates, the total number of cases have increased by 5.1% over the previous week. Hospitalizations have increased by 2.9% and ICU admissions increased by 1.6%. The number of cases have been decreasing from the level seen in November, but we're still at twice the numbers we were seeing in late September and mid-October. And so it's a trend that we have to continue to monitor. So situational updates, this past Wednesday, Governor Walz announced loosened restrictions from Executive Order 20-99. Starting on Friday, December 18th, the following will go into effect. Bars and restaurants will be allowed to resume outdoor dining. I will be limited to 50% capacity or 100 customers, whichever is smaller, with a maximum of 4 patrons per table. Indoor dining and drinking at the establishments will not be permitted at least through January 11th. Fitness studios and gyms will be able to reopen at 25% capacity, no showers or pools, with a 100-person limit. People have to wear masks and maintain 12 feet of social distancing, and fitness classes can resume starting January 4th if everything stays the same. As for youth sports teams, they'll be able to start practicing on January 4th. And family gatherings will be allowed inside with 1 household up to 10 people. Outside, and gather with up to 2 other households and a maximum of 15 people. The health department is encouraging everyone to sign up for the state's COVID Aware Min Exposure app. The app can notify you if you may have been exposed to COVID-19 by anyone else using the app. And the app complements but does not replace case investigation and contact tracing. The health department continues to conduct follow-up on individuals diagnosed with COVID-19, as well as contact tracing at workplaces and with exposed individuals. And of the cases in Minneapolis, 59.8% have been interviewed and 1.8% have refused. 21% of interviews of Minneapolis residents have been conducted in a language other than English. For state-sponsored saliva testing, in the past week, 223 COVID-19 saliva tests were provided at testing events held at the Minneapolis American Indian Center, Columbia Manor in Northeast Minneapolis, and at Sabathani Community Center in South. Free saliva testing hosted by the State Health Department at Minneapolis Convention Center, the Minneapolis St. Paul Airport, and at the Brooklyn Park Starlight Center. The state is also offering free at-home saliva tests. MHD distribution of saliva.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's actually a good spot to pause at.
Sorry. I did have a question, which is, what do you think of this juxtaposition between the dramatic spike in cases and the rolling back of restrictions at the state? And are you considering local regulations or action that's different than what the state's putting in place now?
Thank you, Madam President. It's a fair question. You know, what has been helpful since the very beginning is Governor Walz has stated that his regulations in place will be a baseline. In other words, they will be a minimum. And so, yes, I have actually asked our health department commissioner to come forward with a series of recommendations, given their expertise, to provide us with some information as to whether we should be going above and beyond in any of these areas. And so I think they're actively working on those recommendations right now. I don't want to presuppose what they might be, but you know, obviously in Minneapolis, given the density and proximity of population, we're encountering different difficulties than other areas of the state. So it's a good question.
Are you in touch with other mayors, and is that a conversation that's happening in the metro or in other population centers or local governments?
Yes, we are in touch with other mayors. Matter of fact, I was just talking with Mayor Carter yesterday. You know, I think there are a number of jurisdictions in and around sort of the metro region that would have some, at least, openness to providing additional restriction, given the proximity of population and the case data that we're seeing. I think there is more of an ambivalence in other areas that have less of a density, and in mayors that are further in greater Minnesota, mayors and councils, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Of course, we know that actually a lot of the rural areas in our state have been really heavily hit as well, but the update's helpful. Thank you.
They have
been. I didn't mean to interrupt. I don't see any other questions, so please continue.
No worries at all. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are certain areas of the state that are in rural areas that have been hit even harder than in the Twin Cities, and I think that's in part due to the aggressive action that we took fairly early, and by the fact that I believe, you know, for the most part, our residents are complying with the vast majority of the regulations and orders that have been put in place, and you know, I think as I mentioned, and as you mentioned, some of the ambivalence in greater Minnesota has to do with case data in some instances. Others has to do with, sadly, the politics of the situation. So moving on to the situational updates in Minnesota. No, I'm sorry, I already did that. I'm going to move down to MHD distribution of saliva kits. MHD has provided free saliva testing kits and training for community partners. Virtual training on how to administer the test is offered upon request, and over 4,500 test kits have been requested by groups ranging from Minneapolis public schools to community organizations, local businesses, community clinics, and then first responders. The Pfizer vaccine has been granted emergency use authorization by the FDA and has been shipped to Minnesota. And so that's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. The healthcare systems have begun vaccinating their frontline workers, and hospitals are receiving this vaccine because healthcare workers are the first priority group to receive vaccinations, and they are able to keep it in ultra cold storage. The Moderna vaccine is expected to receive emergency use authorization by the end of the week and will be directed by local public health for use with healthcare workers and residents in long-term care facilities. MHD will contract with Hennepin County Health to provide the shots themselves, and will work with Hennepin Healthcare and members of the Pharmacy Partnership Program to assure that the vaccinations of staff and residents in all long-term care facilities in Minneapolis. The next 1A priority groups are EMS, dialysis providers, assisted living facilities, and intermediate and residential care facilities. Other groups such as law enforcement and critical workers, people who are incarcerated, and those over 65 fall into priority group 1B. And so a grant from the state for $77,448 will help with these vaccination activities.
Mayor, we have a question or comment from Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you so much, Madam President and Mayor Fry, for this update. You know, first of all, I do just want to offer my sincere condolences to the families of all of the Minnesotans and Minneapolitans who have perished from the COVID-19, and offer, you know, best wishes and speedy recoveries to those who have been hospitalized and tested positive. But I wanted to just note around the vaccinations that as we move through these priority groups and, you know, frontline workers, medical providers, that we are prioritizing our communities of color that we know have been hit hardest by this pandemic. And so as we begin to really plan how this distribution is going to happen, you know, I want to make sure that we are including some of the most vulnerable, susceptible people in our community beyond the groups that the priority groups that you just named. And I'm certainly willing to be a part of that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. We would love to have you involved in that conversation. I think your input, especially regarding our BIPOC communities, is accurate and crucial. For winter holiday celebrations, we're using the hashtag, it's hashtag holiday ask wear a mask. And to prepare for end of year gatherings, the safest way to celebrate if you gather indoors is with one other household, up to 10 people, or outdoors with up to 2 other households. That's the way some of the restrictions are put in place. But again, limit your travel, you know, stay at home if you can. If you must go out, please, it's important to wear a mask and stay 6 feet away from others, and wash and sanitize your hands often as well. For procurement, there were no new purchases for this report. As of December 17th, 2020, there has been $9,120,115 spent. The total number includes only purchases made through the emergency purchase regulation, which allows for emergency COVID-19 purchases to be expedited to respond to urgent COVID response needs. So the purchases made through the normal procurement process are obviously not included in this report. And as I always mention, the total costs related to COVID-19 far exceed the amount included in this emergency report. You should have reports on both MPD and some of the crime statistics, some of the work that's done around gun violence, response team, as well as gun recovery and collection. And there should be some information around the work that the fire department is doing well around community engagement, as well as delivering some great gifts to the HCMC burn patients. But I'll move on here to state and federal activity. see a question from Councilmember Schrader, Madam President, but I'm happy to.
Thanks, Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just thank you for the reports on MPD. There's certainly some good work. I also just want to highlight there was also a very damning report by the Minnesota Reformer that really detailed some of the lack of discipline and action on that in MPD. I don't need to belabor the point. I don't need answers now. What I would really hope is that there would be a report to the Public Safety and Health Committee from the chief, just detailing kind of some of the public answers to the questions that were raised in that article. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member.
Thank you.
As for state and federal activity on, and Council Member, and yes, I did have the opportunity to read the report, as did the chief. Although many of the items have, preceded all of our times in office, I think it highlighted some really crucial elements that deserve answers. And so, rather than just give kind of one-off iterative responses, I think it's important that we do a real deep dive here and provide some of the answers that are necessary. And I've already discussed the matter with the chief. I don't know if he's on at the moment. He could describe some of his disciplinary efforts, which, by the way, have been more on a monthly basis than, at the very least, the two or three previous chiefs. So the number of disciplines and terminations have definitively gone up. But Chief, if you're there, you can perhaps speak a bit to that. I see from our clerk the chief isn't on the line, but we can get you that data, Council Member. On Monday, the legislature reconvened for the 7th and final special session of 2020. The special session was called once again to renew the governor's emergency peacetime order and powers. Along with renewing the powers, the legislature also approved the $216 million business relief package. $88 million is appropriated. $80 million is appropriated to Minnesota Department of Revenue to identify eligible businesses through tax records and will make direct payments to businesses impacted by Executive Order 20-19 enacted on November 18th. $114.8 million is appropriated to Minnesota's 87 counties, who will then decide how to distribute those funds to local businesses. The county funds are less restrictive than the direct payments from the Department of Revenue, but businesses can receive funding from both programs. $14 million is appropriated to the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, who will administer a grant program for movie theaters and convention centers. Movie theaters can receive up to $150,000 and convention centers can receive up to $500,000. Along with financial relief, the package also includes regulatory relief for various state licenses and fees, and also extends the state unemployment insurance program through April 10th, 2021. As for the federal update, Congress is close to reaching an agreement on a fourth wave of coronavirus relief that the almost $900 billion agreement does not include funding for state and local governments. Also, it does not include business liability protections, two items that were sticking points in moving an agreement forward. For GAP funding, the 1,596 households have been approved for emergency assistance payments through the Minneapolis GAP Funds for Housing program, totaling $2,518,227.21 as of Tuesday, December 15th. Community prevention partners and city staff are working through the verification and approval process for the last 175 applications on the emergency housing assistance list. And staff expect the final applications to be processed by the end of this month. MPHA has completed review of all applications in the Stable Homes, Stable Schools COVID-19 emergency expansion list. And the Minneapolis GAP Funds for Housing dashboard with aggregated demographic and geographic information on approved applications is now available. The small business loan was awarded to 173 businesses. That's not news. And with that, thank you for the time today. I'm happy to stand for additional questions.
Thanks, Mayor. Are there any other questions from council members? I don't see any, so that will conclude this item on our agenda. I'll direct the clerk to file that report. Thank you. The next order of business are the reports from our standing committees, and we'll begin with a report from our Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee, presented by the Chair, Councilmember Goodman.
Good morning, Madam President, members of the Council. The Business Inspection, Zoning, and Housing Committee is bringing forward 25 items for our approval. Items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are land sales. Item 6 is denying an appeal. Item 7 is liquor license approvals, and 8 is liquor license renewals. Item 9 is extending the exclusive development rights for AECOM at 800 Washington Avenue. Items 10 and 11 are forgivable loan write-offs for the Worth Co-op grocery store, as well as Elamine Fish House Enterprises. Item 12 is a financial modification to the financing at East Village North and East Village South apartments. Item 13 is a loan agreement amendment with Kente Circle. Item 14 are a number of authorizations for the Minnesota Pathways grant agreements. Item 15 are a large number of grants for the Great Streets Business District Support Program. Item 16 is a comp plan amendment for the Alina Transportation Hub at 28th and Chicago. Item 17 is the fall 2020 Hennepin County TOD program applications. Item 18 is the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Housing appointments. Item 19 is rezoning for North Bay companies, and 20 is a rezoning for Solheim at 420 Hennepin Avenue East. Item 21 are changes to our emergency shelter ordinance, allowing them in industrial areas. Item 22 is the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Plan Ordinance. Item 23 is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund award recommendations, awarding $14 million worth of projects. 10 projects funded, 8 were not. Item 24 is our preliminary reservation of our 2021 9% low-income housing tax credits. This is actually for a project at 3301 Nicollet. And item number 25 are putting in place the built form policies to complement the 2040 plan. With that, I understand there are a couple of amendments, so I'm not sure how you want to handle this, Madam President. I think the amendment by Councilmember Gordon is on item number 22. So I think I'll move items 1 through 21 and 23 through 25 so that item 22 can stand for an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think, so we do have a motion on 22 and a motion on 25. Why don't I take the comments on the items first, and then return back to the two items that have motions, as the chair suggested with the one. So Councilmember Gordon has a comment on the agenda. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to comment briefly on item 21, which is the emergency shelter ordinance. I think this is a big step, and it's a hopeful step. We did amend this emergency shelter ordinance a few years ago, and we found that providers were coming to us and wanted to do things that we were still preventing with our ordinance. So this is opening it up a little bit more. Probably the most significant thing is we are now opening it in industrial areas that will allow the indoor villages proposal that we have before us to proceed. It also opens up much more of the city for shelters, taking away many of the hurdles we've heard make it difficult for folks to open shelters. You know, it's one part of our response to the crisis of unsheltered homelessness. We still need to do more, but this is a really big step in the right direction, and I hope people take advantage of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to speak to a couple of items very quickly. I'm very excited about the Great Streets grants. We have for the first time 3 awardees in Ward 4, which is unprecedented and really exciting. We have very little coordinated commercial activity happening in our community. It's something that a lot of folks have asked for a long time. And so I'm very excited to see the city investing in Ward 4 in this way. And I also just want to also speak to, I think it's the next item, no, item 17, which is there are 2 Ward 4 projects that are being that will be receiving the Hennepin County TOD grants. Baldwin Square, which is a really exciting project that's been underway for quite some time now. I've been doing a lot of work to try help us move through that, and it's ready to go. We recently sold the land to the developer, a local developer, and so really excited about that. Baldwin Square after James Baldwin, so it's pretty cool. And then we have 2 properties, commercial properties that are going to be put into a commercial land trust that will be owned by the community to be able to really convert that. That area has been a hotspot of gun violence and of open air drug markets, and the neighborhood in particular has really gathered around those 2 properties and want to undertake this project as an opportunity to really turn that into an asset rather than a liability to the neighborhood. So I'm very, very excited for those 2 items, and just want to thank my colleagues and the staff who have carried a lot of big items on this particular agenda. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Council Vice President Jenkins.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to comment on the 3301 Nicollet project that is finally receiving the tax credits. This is a deeply affordable project that will be in the Lindale neighborhood, and just wanted to express my gratitude that we are finally able to get this project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a huge agenda with so many amazing pieces of work. So thank you so much to all of the staff who've helped negotiate and shape the affordable housing projects that are being funded, the staff who've been working for many years on our regulations around homeless shelters, expanding opportunity for shelter, and thanks to the authors of that. Councilmember Gordon and I did an initial version of that back in 2014, and the staff have been working on it ever since, and so appreciated. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Council President. I was going to say something very similar, which is just that this is an incredibly impressive body of work that the Biz Committee put through. So thank you to everybody on this committee. And thank you to all of the city staff who have been working on housing. We're seeing some really exciting things coming through. I just wanted to comment briefly, just to acknowledge, I had a meeting, and I know many of us have met with the folks at Beacon Interfaith, and we're to a place now where we've developed our affordable housing work such that we're getting a lot more applications for affordable housing trust fund dollars than we can meet. And so I want to support the recommendations of this committee today. I also think it's worth continually evaluating as the housing market changes, as housing opportunities change. Are we getting the best possible results? Are we getting as high a mix of 30% AMI units as possible out of the investments that we're making, and are there ways that we should adjust policy moving forward? None of that is to undermine the terrific work, and I just wanted to acknowledge the feedback we've gotten, and I think the value in continuing to evaluate the work moving forward, so we can keep getting the best results for our city. But thank you to everybody who's been involved in all of this. It's terrific work.
Thank you, Councilmember. And just for the public flow, I'll be taking comments on all of the items except 22 and 25. Then we'll go back and take up those motions and discussion on those 2 items. Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to suggest that we also pull number 25. And I do want to note for folks who haven't had the opportunity to serve on any of these multiple committees that has become this one committee, that every year the Affordable Housing Trust Fund guidelines are brought to us. Every year there are multiple changes based on current conditions. And so, for example, there was a bonus given to projects at 30% in the scoring process. And every year we have an opportunity to review it based on changing times. And so we will be doing that next spring in anticipation of the fall round as well.
Thank you, and thank you for taking on all the work of chairing this large body of work through the committee. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Council President. I'm not going to say anything too much different, but I just wanted to speak on the Beacon project because it is in my ward. I think that the recommendations that we've gotten from staff are incredible. We've gone from closing, somewhere on the average of 4 projects a year to upwards of 10 or more projects. And I think that speaks to the incredible work that we're getting from staff. But I also want to reassure the folks at Beacon and for folks who weren't awarded that, even though we're upping our investment, even though we are committed to building affordable housing, I know that this project in my ward has received a mix of great support and also some pushback in the ward. That I think that this is absolutely a project that is going to at some point come online and be a really productive and useful and needed project in the community, and that this by no means I think speaks to our commitment to building 30% AMI housing. I know that I've been more supportive of that in happening in Ward 5 even than some of my predecessors, and so I want to thank them for advocating for themselves. But I also just want to acknowledge and reassure them that not getting funded this year in no way speaks to the quality of the project. They have a great project, and I look forward to supporting it in the future. And because it's a resource that our communities need. But again, just want to thank staff for. I had a lot of questions for staff as I was, trying to do my due diligence on that project, and am just really impressed with the recommendations that we got this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to speak again. And I guess I just want to really echo the comments made by Council Members Fletcher and Ellison relative to the Beacon project. These determinations in no way is indication of the quality or the need for their project, and we've worked with Beacon on a number of projects in the past that are accessible to deeply affordable needs, and this Emerson Village project is certainly one of those, and I really look forward to catching up with the timing of that project and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to bring that project to fruition. And so, yeah, I want to thank the Beacon team for bringing this project forward, and look forward to, like I said, being able to support this project in the future.
Thank you all. And it is worth noting, I think, as Councilmember Goodman reflected, that the policy direction that we give as a city council has had a really dramatic impact on the body of work of our amazing staff who are implementing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund spending and the 9% tax credit spending. I remember the first cycle of that this term. The council members who took office at the beginning of this term had a really different perspective on the issues of what used to be called concentration of poverty, and really advocated for their communities to be a place that was prioritized for investment of really needed affordable housing. But for that advocacy, I think, and that effort of our council members, particularly the council members of color, raising the issue of needed affordable housing in their communities, I'm not sure we would have had such a dramatic shift of our policy approach and the implementation that staff has carried out. So thanks to the council members who did that work, and to the staff who are bringing it to life through the implementation. I don't see any other comments on those items. I think because of the virtual environment, I will just take up the items and then do the whole agenda. because of the number of times we can't really do a voice vote. So we'll move back to item 22 with a motion from Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much, President Bender. So this is a staff direction, so I'm not actually changing the ordinance amendments and the other things that we're doing with the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area Plan. But this river corridor is really a major asset to the city of Minneapolis, and the kind of habitat that it creates and the natural, almost urban wilderness that's there is really significant. So I wanted to direct our community planning and economic staff to look into some issues that came up during this conversation a little more closely. And actually, this is building on a staff direction from the Planning Commission, and it's adding to it. It would recommend that staff to come back recommending standards for bird-safe materials, bird-safe lighting, and bird-friendly vegetation management, and also recommendations regarding the structure height tiering at the XL Riverside site in the critical area overlay zoning district. Councilmember Reich has assisted with this, particularly focusing some interest on that Riverside site, and I welcome him to speak on it as well. So I'll make this motion. Thank you.
Councilmember Gordon has moved an amendment for item 22. Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Councilmember Gordon, for you and your office's work on this. And yeah, I'll just reiterate that this builds on the work that staff has already set up for some additional refinement, and time will allow that. But it's good that we have the framework that staff has put in place to work with. So I wanted to acknowledge that baseline as we move forward, and their willingness to continue refining things as Councilmember Gordon described.
Thank you. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Council Members Gordon and Reich, for your work on this. I'm supportive of it, and may be coming to you to add a very technical issue related to this critical river corridor in the downtown section, where there might be a couple of contradictory guidances from contradictory overlays just on the stretch of river between 35 and Plymouth. So just wanted to, for the constituents who raised those issues around how we treat parkland in the critical river area, I just wanted to signal that we're working on that, and we'll figure out together whether it belongs in this work or as a standalone technical change that we need to make to clarify.
Thank you. Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say I'll be supporting this. I want to thank Councilmember Gordon and Councilmember Reich for their work on this, and also wanted to call out the advocacy of the Audubon chapter and thank them for this critical issue. It's not a simple one when we talk about how we're going to protect wildlife and their habitat in this urban environment, and I appreciate kind of their willingness to work with the city on this.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this direction for item 22? Seeing none, let's, clerk, please call the roll on this particular direction.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Oh yeah. What's your
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano. Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That carries, and that direction is adopted. That brings us to item 25 with an amendment from Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Council President. So I'll be, I'm proposing an amendment for item 25, and I'd like to make the motion to replace the language in 5.
Second.
Excuse me, Councilmember, Mr. Clerk. So I'm having trouble hearing Councilmember Schrader. Is that my issue or?
No, Madam President, we're all having technical challenges. We can hear you now, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, I'll go back and say I'm making a motion to replace the language in 552.230 with the amendment that I circulated with my colleagues as well as the clerk earlier. Basically, this is to ensure the affordability premiums apply to projects led by the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that. So this is something I worked with Councilmember Gordon and Councilmember Reich. We previously added initiatives for affordable and sustainable development as part of our Built to Work form. And first of all, I want to thank them for their work on that. But we need to make sure that this extends to the Public Housing Authority as well. And with this amendment, it does clarify that MPHA, one of our important sources in the city of affordable and deeply affordable housing in our community, is able to take advantage of these initiatives. And the amendment today, in a lot of ways, is technical, and we'll be able to make that fix to make sure that our intentions are clear. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this. And while I have the mic, I did want to do my thanks to staff for this year of work. As Chair Goodman really put well, we've had a lot of work combined into one committee. So I want to thank my colleagues on that committee. It is an impressive amount of work. This is just one meeting, and they've been kind of busy at this since the pandemic. So I want to thank them. I want to thank staff also for all that they've been able to do and bring forward. I'm extremely proud of the work we've been able to do. And finally, also I want to thank Chair Goodman for taking this on, for leading us through this, making this smooth, seamless, and transparent to the public. And with that mixing of things together, I'll move this amendment.
Thank you, Councilmember Schrader. Is there any discussion on this amendment from Councilmember Schrader? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll on the amendment.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano. Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Allison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries and that amendment is adopted. Next, we'll have Councilmember Fletcher with a staff direction on item 25.
Thank you, Council President. And I just got a note that my colleagues hadn't seen this, so I apologize for the miscue if this is the first time you're seeing it. And I know the clerk has it, so hopefully we can get it up on the screen. But I just wanted to bring forward a staff direction. I think the Biz Committee did terrific work on implementing the 2040 plan. I've also gotten some feedback, and I know we've all gotten some feedback from some credible community partners and advocates who are concerned that we're not going to meet the comp plan goals with the FAR that we have allowed for in this. And so I don't want to weigh in on what we're passing today. I'm supportive of what we're passing today. I just want to create a staff direction to make sure that we're tracking the data and presenting the data in an organized way so that we can evaluate in the future as a way of acknowledging, I think, some meaningful feedback and thought that we got from community partners who are thinking about how to actually build duplexes and triplexes using the new zoning. So I we'll read it out loud and paste it in the chat, I suppose, while we wait to get it up on the screen.
Mr. Clerk, do you have the staff direction available?
I do. I'm forwarding it to the online Teams meeting right now. We're furiously trying to work. You can continue to keep reading, Councilmember, and we'll get it up in the meantime.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I worked with staff and the clerk's office yesterday to get this in and moving forward with the blessing of Director Brennan and the CPED staff, directing staff to come back in March 2022 with data including, but not limited to, how many single-family homes, duplexes, and triplexes were approved in 2021, in which built form designations, with which bonuses, and any other pertinent measurable criteria to help council evaluate the allowable FAR guidance approved in ordinance in 2020. So I'm hoping that, first of all, that's something that probably would have happened anyway. This is really just a way of expressing some intentionality around doing some evaluation, and I'm hopeful people will support this. Thanks.
And from me, Mr. Fletcher, I would just apologize. You did send that in. I know you worked with CPED staff yesterday. There was a series of emails and it fell to me, and that's where it fell through the cracks. So it is displayed now for members to refer to and for the public to view. Apologies again.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Fletcher. Of course, I'm seeing some questions and comments in the chat. I mean, we just had another staff direction on another item. This is pretty standard procedure to discuss amendments and staff directions at the city council meetings. And so, Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilmember Schrader and Councilmember Gordon have been working on their amendments literally since the committee meeting, and they spoke to it in committee and they've circulated it broadly. This is news to me right now. I don't actually oppose this, however, because I don't think that there's any reason why we shouldn't have data. I would just ask the author to consider that a one-year snapshot is probably not adequate to determine whether or not this is working. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We've had social unrest. We've had people fleeing the city and others moving in because there's maybe a cost benefit to do so. And so I don't think that 2021 would be an adequate reflection of how well this is working. And so, I'd be more comfortable if we gave it 2 years, but I'm not opposed to getting data about any of this. And I do think it would be better and slightly more respectful if this came in advance, since Councilmember Schrader and Gordon have been talking about this bird safe glass thing endlessly in committee, and Councilmember Schrader also was very clear about ensuring that public housing was included in the bonuses for affordable housing. So I don't oppose a staff direction, but I don't think 1 year is probably an adequate time in terms of gathering data given the times we're in right now.
Thank you, Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam President. I think first to address the issue of kind of the timeliness, I know that Councilmember Fletcher has been working on this, and it is something that needs to be looked at. I agree with Councilmember Goodman. 1 year is probably one snapshot, and maybe this is something that continues on. And I also thought Councilmember Fletcher made a good point of, this is probably something that would happen anyway. I appreciate the amendment, and I also would say, on the timeliness, I think the author has done what he can. I would like to remind my colleagues we've gotten multiple very important contracts and other things that we've had less than 24 hours notice on that we still didn't have this type of scrutiny. So I don't want to have too much put on the author. I appreciate Councilmember Fletcher bringing this forward, and I'm happy to work with him as this goes forward.
Thank you all. And I appreciate this issue being highlighted. It was, of course, discussed at great length during the Planning Commission discussion, which I was able to listen to online. And there was significant, I think, feedback from not just the public, but our planning commissioners around this issue of viability of this housing type that is being codified in our plans and codes. So appreciate this transparency about our commitment to continuing to review, I think, all of the elements, but this one in particular that has received a lot of discussion and scrutiny. Any further discussion on this staff direction? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll on the direction.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries and that direction is adopted. I put myself in queue to make a comment on the underlying item of 25. This is just really a huge accomplishment for our city, and I want to express my deep thanks and appreciation to Councilmember Schrader, the chair of our Zoning and Planning Committee and a member of our Planning Commission. Having served in that role last term, I know that it is an enormous amount of extra work that the council member who is in that role takes on, and it is so appreciated. And to council members Reich and Gordon who joined in authoring this amendment, we've been talking about how to implement the land use policies of the Minneapolis 2040 plan since 2016. Back then, we didn't have a long-range planning director. I was zoning and planning chair. I met every other week with the staff who researched and developed the Minneapolis 2040 plan. It was an honor to be able to support them, and my goal in those conversations was to provide the support that staff need when they're taking on a big, challenging project with multiple aspects of community engagement and policymaking and politics. And in that partnership, my role was to really handle the political side and the policymaking side as they dove into the details that staff have the capacity to do in the day-to-day. And so I just want to really thank the staff, many of whom who've left the city since those years ago, who from the very beginning of the process of developing the 2040 plan and its recommendations, took the time to think about how it would be implemented, and who proposed the idea of creating a built form map in our 2040 plan. It's the first of its kind in the city, which provides additional guidance for how buildings should look and feel. And then the implementation in this built form overlay has come, I think because of all of that groundwork going back years in a really timely way, so that we have synergy between the land use guidance in our 2040 plan and the zoning code, which governs the decisions that are being made on each parcel of land in our city. I think taking this citywide policy approach, the important issues that are governed by land use and zoning, is critically important to meeting our race equity and climate change goals. And the thought that staff and the Planning Commission and members of our public and the council members who authored this ordinance have taken to think about how to strategically incorporate rules that implement those high level policy and goals is really critical to the success. Because it's the first time we're doing this with a built form map in our plan and a new built form overlay district with incentives to implement, these bigger goals, I know that there'll need to be adjustment over time in the years to come. And so, in the same vein as Councilmember Fletcher's staff direction on the one particular issue of the size of duplexes and triplexes and the viability of that housing type in our city, all of the different elements of our 2040 plan and the zoning code implementation will need to be monitored and reviewed over time, as has happened with our last comp plan update and zoning code. And I just know, again, how much staff has really thought through all of these different moving pieces, how they've worked to incorporate the feedback from multiple stakeholders and different voices in the city. And just want to appreciate so much the multi-year process and work that went into this really technical decision today. Recently, a reporter asked me, what's going to happen to the Minneapolis 2040 plan when you're not in office anymore? And I said, it's already happening. That was never about me or one council member. I had the honor of serving as the chair of the committee at the time, but this has always been a team effort, and it is a reflection of the mostly nearly unanimous vote that we took to adopt that plan and the work of so many staff, community members, and council members. So again, appreciation. I know zoning is not always the most exciting topic, although it's one we hear a lot about and increasingly about. So wanted to take the time to lift up this work and offer my thanks and gratitude. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on item 25? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll on the committee report.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon. Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon. Vice President Jenkins.
Aye, and Mr. Clerk, it may be important to note for the public that Councilmember Gordon is having technical issues with his computer. Thank you.
Thank you. President Bender.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
That carries, and that report is adopted. And as Council Vice President noted, Councilmember Gordon is working to rejoin the meeting.
Aye.
Oh, hi.
That's Gordon saying aye.
Welcome back, Councilmember.
Thank you.
That concludes that committee report. Next, we have the report of the Policy and Government Oversight Committee given by the Chair, Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam President. The Policy and Government Oversight Committee brings forward 19 items today. Item number 1 is designating polling places for the 2021 municipal election. Item number 2 is approving the 2021 legislative agenda and policy positions. And I will just note for my colleagues that I will be bringing forth a technical amendment, a motion to sort of a corrective technical amendment to item number 2. Item number 3 is approving city council appointments to the South Side Green Zone for the unexpired terms beginning April 1st, 2019 and ending March 31, 2021. Items number 4 through 11 are legal settlements, the details of which are listed on the agenda. Item number 12 and 13 are contract amendments related to the public service building project, the details of which are listed on the agenda. Item number 14 is a contract amendment for additional licensing associated with 311's Langen system. Item number 15 is a contract amendment with Everlaw Inc. to allow for additional usage of its e-discovery and redaction software. Item number 16 is accepting the sole bid of the Carlson Printing to furnish envelopes and letterhead as needed by city departments. Item number 17 is authorizing a no-cost representation engagement agreement with Jones Day for legal representation in matters relating to labor negotiations and employment and labor law litigations, as well as associated staff direction offered by Councilmember Gordon at committee. Item number 18 approves legislative contracts with Franzen Law and Policy Group and Fredrickson and Byron. Item number 19 is authorizing agreements with U.S. Solar, Impact Power Solutions, and Nokomis Energy for annual community solar garden subscriptions. And I will move approval of the Policy and Government Oversight Committee report, noting that I will be bringing a motion to item number 2.
Thank you. Council Vice President has moved the committee report. Looks like there'll be some additional discussion on item 2 and 2 motions. I'll go ahead and recognize you, Council Vice President, for item 2, followed by Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm bringing forward a motion to amend item number 2 on the Policy Governance Oversight Committee report to allow the Intergovernmental Relations staff to make a technical correction to the data practices section on page number 10 of the 2021 legislative agenda policy positions. The 4th bullet under that section will be corrected to state data practices instead of data privacy. And I will just take a moment to thank Mr. Chuck Turchik for his eagle eye in bringing this technical issue to our attention. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Council Vice President has moved this technical amendment for item 2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye on, oh, sorry, just on the motion. Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries and that amendment is adopted. Councilmember Gordon, I understand you also have an amendment for this item 2.
That is correct. I would like to move the amendment before you to item number 2. This would be amending the 2021 legislative agenda under the transportation section. There was already something in the RCA and the staff recommendation that included support to extend the Midtown Greenway Trail across the Mississippi River. I just wanted to make it clear that this is to extend the Greenway non-motorized, adding that word, across the river, and oppose investments in this rail corridor that do not advance this goal. I'm happy to speak further on this if people would like to. This is definitely a very significant crossing where the Midtown Greenway actually goes right up to the river and right now doesn't cross the river. And we're having some discussions with the railroads about making investments along the trail near there. And I just want to make sure that we are emphasizing our desire to get this crossing over the river. St. Paul is also very supportive of this effort as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries and that amendment is adopted. Is there any discussion on the committee agenda? Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't have any discussion on the entire agenda. I just kind of wanted a little clarification from Councilmember Gordon. Does this motion that just passed exclude any opportunities for transit along the Greenway?
Thank you, and my apologies if I missed you before we voted. Councilmember Gordon.
No, not necessarily. So of course it emphasizes non-motorized transit, but it doesn't. I think it recognizes that there's existing rail, at least in the part of the Greenway that's in Ward 2, and that it could coexist. That rail also already is crossing over the river. So no, the intention isn't to say we can't have any kind of rail that's still going on. There may even be a way to keep serving those businesses that rely on it. But as we're making improvements there, we want to make sure that there's an openness, and the railroads are, I guess, coming, and Canadian Pacific specifically, to also talk about how they could support non-motorized transportation.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Appreciate it.
Thank you both. Is there any further discussion on the Policy and Government Oversight Committee agenda? Yeah, I'll just briefly note that item 2, which we've just discussed briefly, is our legislative agenda. It often does evolve throughout the legislative session, with thanks to Councilmember Johnson, who is our kind of informal IGR chair as in the new committee structure. We talked about this a bit at the staff presentation, but there is clearly a need to continue to develop and refine our agenda related to public safety and policing. I know I've had many conversations, and I know others have as well, about all the multiple processes that are happening right now as we examine our system of policing and public safety. I know Mayor Fry is convening this local group, even meeting today, which may have recommendations. We've been talking with members of our legislative delegation who have been leading state conversations about police reform and accountability and oversight change. And I'm really excited about the leadership that our IGR staff are providing with really starting to develop more of a continuum of policy approach that's kind of weaving together things that we're doing at the city with state policy changes that the city is advocating for or seeking. So I think there'll be a lot more to come throughout the legislative session on this issue of policing and public safety, but as always, as our agenda evolves throughout the time of the session. Thank you. I don't see any other discussion. With that, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
No on 17, aye on the rest.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
No on 17, aye on the rest.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
No on 17, aye on the rest.
The report carries with 13 ayes, except for item number 17, which has 10 ayes and 3 nays.
Madam President.
Councilmember Gordon.
I was confused because we stopped to discuss the staff direction again after it had passed. I also wanted to be noted as a no on 17, if you would give me that ruling that I could change my vote.
Is there any objection to Councilmember Gordon's request? Seeing none, clerk is directed to record his vote as a no. That concludes our committee report, and that has been adopted. The next report is from our Public Health and Safety Committee that will be presented by the committee's chair, Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 10 items for approval today. The first is accepting a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health for enhancing influenza vaccination coverage. Item number 2 is accepting a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health for public health services more broadly. Item number 3 is council and mayoral appointments to the Public Health Advisory Committee. Item number 4 is a contract amendment with Dial Group for Create Changemakers Apprenticeship Program. Item number 5 is council and mayoral appointments to the Minneapolis Workplace Advisory Committee. Item number 6 is accepting a sexual assault kit initiative grant from the U.S. Department of Justice for backlogged sexual assault evidence, kit DNA analysis, investigation, and prosecution. Item number 7 is passage of a resolution amending a previous resolution around fire truck donations to the city of Cuernavaca, Mexico. Item number 7 is approving a change to expand the Northern Metals Settlements Fund service area. Item number 9 is approving council mayoral appointments to the Police Conduct Review Panel. And item number 10 is appointing mayoral and council appointments to the Police Conduct Oversight Commission. With that, Madam Chair, I will move approval of all 10 items.
Councilmember Cunningham has moved the committee report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries and the report is adopted. Next, we have a report from the Transportation and Public Works Committee presented by the Chair, Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee will be forwarding 13 items for full council consideration today. Before I go into those items, we did recognize something that doesn't require council action, but it was a significant discussion item as the department was awarded the American Public Works Association Project of the Year Award for the North Loop Paving Reconstruction Project. Very significant, competitive, prestigious nationwide award. And of course, we did comment on how staff over several years did the policy formation, the planning work, and then the implementation to great effect. And I know Councilmember Fletcher spoke to how meaningful it was to that community and how transformative it was in both aesthetics, environment, and safety. But the actual items that we must consider are 13, and I'll go through those in order. Item 1 is the Plymouth Avenue North reconstruction project and the actions required to move forward with that. Item 2 is the contract amendment for Micah Corporation for cleaning and lining of water mains. Item 3 was the contract amendment with Meyer Contracting Incorporated for North Loop Street reconstruction project. Item 4 was the contract amendment with SM Hentages and Sons for the 28th Avenue South Bridge replacement project. 5 was a contract amendment with PCI Roads LLC for 20-inch drain line vault project at Columbia Heights Filter Plant. Item 6 is the Pedestrian Advisory Committee appointments, and those names were listed. 7 was the Bicycle Advisory Committee appointments, again, those names listed. 8 is the 2021 Street Resurfacing Program project designation cost estimates and setting of the public hearings, all projects were listed. 9 is the Whittier-Lyndale Protected Bikeway Project, variance request for the municipal state aid standards. 10 is the cooperative agreement with Hennepin County for 6th Street Safety Project. 11 is the cooperative agreement with the Hennepin County 7th Street Safety Project. 12 is the Rethinking I-94. These were a passage of comments that reflect our priorities to MnDOT. And 13 was the bid for Lower Street St. Anthony Falls Lock and Dam Water Service Relocation Project. Madam President, I move all items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any discussion on the items? I don't see any. Oh, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a comment on the I-94 resolution. I think this is very significant. I really appreciate the city taking this step. The state is looking at really some significant reconstruction in there, and they're talking about reimagining I-94 before they enter into that stretch that would go through St. Paul and much of Minneapolis. And I think it gives us a real opportunity. And there's also a lot of risk involved in it too. I recall when the state was coming in to do 35W, the city took some strong positions, and we ended up actually with a BRT lane and some stations right there on 35W. So my hope is that by coming up with some parameters this early in the process, that's really clear, and also standing united with our elected official colleagues in St. Paul and many others across the metro area that really want to see us look at freeways a little bit differently, that this resolution will kind of help set that tone. So I just wanted to emphasize the importance of that. Even though it's just a resolution, it really will help tee us up, I think, for some really good discussions moving forward.
Thank you, Councilmember I wholeheartedly agree. I just want to make a brief comment on item 7, our BAC appointments, the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Our very long-time chair of that committee, Nick Mason, has recently retired from his volunteer role in that committee, and I just want to thank him for all of his volunteer hours over the many years. Things have changed dramatically in how we do transportation planning as a city. It used to be basically impossible to get any information from staff at the city and county about projects that were coming through, and his efforts to really professionalize and support and build partnerships with staff at the city and county. I mean, that used to include going and barbecuing at someone's house and try to like build those relationships informally. And now I think has such a more professional and consistent and policy supported approach in the role of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. And many of our committees have really become more part of our process and a really important tool for community engagement. So thanks to Nick and all the time that he's given our city. That's one example of the many, many people who do so. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also want to express my gratitude to Nick for all of his work, all of his service. I know we've had that conversation as well, but it is truly remarkable all he's given to the city, and we're so appreciative. And so it's bittersweet to see him moving on from the BAC, but we know he has many more contributions ahead for the city as he remains so dedicated to his community and to Minneapolis. So thanks again, Nick.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and that report is adopted. Next, we have the order of, next on our agenda, we have the notice of ordinance introductions, and I have 2 notices on the agenda today. First, we have a notice from Councilmember Goodman related to the subject matter introduction of an ordinance amending the building code to amend and repeal various provisions related to elevators and conveyance devices. Second, we have notice from Councilmember Gordon related to the subject matter introduction of an ordinance amending the zoning code to add provisions related to bird-safe buildings. Are there any questions on either of those notices? Seeing none, notice is given and no further action is required. The next order of business is resolutions, and we have the 3 honorary resolutions that were presented at the beginning of the meeting today. Those included the resolutions recognizing Mr. Todd and Mr. Intermill, as well as the resolution designating December 18th as 2020 International Migrants Day in the city of Minneapolis. I'll ask for a motion to adopt those 3 honorary resolutions.
So moved.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and those resolutions are adopted. Our next order of business is motions, and we have 1 motion this morning from Councilmember Palmisano to reconsider the vote on resolution number 2020 R363, which is the resolution adopting the 2020 property tax levies payable in 2021. This resolution was adopted as part of the 2021 budget package. The request here is to reopen the vote on that resolution to correct a clerical error in the recording of the vote. Are there any questions or comments on the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Seeing no discussion, we'll first take a vote on the motion to reconsider, and then assuming that passes, we'll have the motion and the vote on the original resolution again. So that means all council members will be voting again on the specific piece of the budget, which is the adoption of the tax levy. Any questions? Councilmember Ellison.
Yeah, just want to thank my colleagues for indulging me here. This is due to me being recorded as a no vote when I didn't intend to be. I remember voting aye, but when I listen to the video, it sounds like I'm saying no, which I think is some kind of deep fake conspiracy. But no, I just want to thank my colleagues for indulging me and correcting this mistake.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison. Right. Seeing no further discussion, clerk will just first take a vote on the motion to reconsider this item.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, so the motion to reconsider is approved. We'll now call the roll on the original resolution, which pertains to the property tax levies payable in 2021. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Cano.
Aye.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Councilmember Schrader.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye. Yes. Affirmative.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Jenkins.
Aye.
President Bender.
Aye.
There are 13 affirmative votes.
That carries, and that resolution is adopted unanimously. The clerk will correct the vote tally in the resolution. I almost said revolution. In the resolution, and republish it as an official act by the City Council. All right, with that, we have a request from our city clerk to receive and file the results of the 2 ballot questions related to elections administration that were passed as part of the 2020 general election. Mr. Clerk will speak to this item.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This is really an improvement in how the clerk's office is handling record keeping of those amendments to the city charter, which are referred to the voters at ballot. In previous years, of course, when charter amendments are passed at the ballot, they are recorded at the election office, but we've not brought them back through the council process, which is the official permanent record kept forever. And so this is our process of getting those official actions taken by voters in adopting an ordinance amending the charter into the council's permanent proceedings, so that not only can we record them in a permanent manner, but also for future research and retrieval purposes, have an easier manner of being able to find and retrieve information about amendments made by voters at the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Caller. Are there any questions from council members? Seeing none, I will direct the clerk to receive and file those 2 items. Finally, we have the order of announcements. Are there any announcements from council members today? Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I do want to just announce that yesterday, December 17th, was International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers. I want to bring attention to this day in support of, last month I talked about the National Transgender Day of Remembrance. And we know that so many Black and brown trans identified people are forced into sex work by society. And so just expressing solidarity and lifting up the voices of those marginalized communities that are deeply impacted by gender-based violence. And so I wanted to bring awareness to that attention. Yesterday, myself and I believe Councilmember Gordon attended a virtual visual to to just honor the lives of those lost to violence against sex workers. And so, again, just wanting to bring light and attention to this very critical issue. Thank you. As well as, I should say, wish you, all my colleagues, a very, very happy holiday season. I know that Hanukkah ended yesterday, last night, and certainly we are moving into full swing into the Christmas holidays and others. So just want to wish you all a happy and safe holiday season and extend that to the citizens and the residents of Minneapolis as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. I just wanted to extend my gratitude, I think, to all of you, my colleagues, but also all the city staff for putting up with me and dealing with me, I guess, but also really for getting us through this incredibly difficult year together. I can't remember a more challenging year, and the things that we've gone through have been just enormous. Our very basic functioning has been challenged to its core. I think the way we do business and make decisions, we've had to be so flexible, and it's been so different. I can't really express how much I have missed all of you, and I know it seems like maybe we actually are getting together, but we actually are not, and we're more distant and separated than ever. As we go through those resolutions acknowledging people who are leaving and those kinds of things, I think that it's really clear. It's also been really challenging because of the way we have to do public hearings now and hear from people. And I think in some ways, though it maybe looks like our divisions are so great, I think I feel closer to all of you maybe than I ever have before, because we've been through such a challenging and difficult year. And I think that my heart is aching for when we can actually be working together and being together in space, as well as virtually here. So thank you, Council President, Vice President, and all my council colleagues. Thanks to the department heads, all of them. Thanks to the mayor and all of his staff. And thanks to all of the workers in our city for helping us as a city and as an organization survive this incredibly difficult year. And I am hopeful that things are going to be changing and things are going to be getting better next year. And I look forward to proving that to be true with all of you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Osman.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to take time to really thank my colleagues coming in very late in for 2020. You all have been great friend and great welcoming me here in the City Hall. I haven't experienced what the City Hall feels like and actual without the COVID social distancing, but it's been very kind and helpful the way you welcome me and the way you reach out to me and offer me the help I need. And I do want to take the time to really thank the city clerk office and the staff, for getting me going right away. And with all the challenges of COVID brought to us. And I'm honored to really serve the residents of Minneapolis. And it's an honor and continue serving our, following year, and wishing you all the best. Happy New Year and happy holidays. And hopefully we all can come together and I can meet some of you that I haven't met. I met majority of you, and looking forward and hoping that we will meet soon, like Councilmember Goodman put it in. So thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Osman. And I too wanted to just express my appreciation for how much every single person who's part of this city, the government of our city enterprise, as we call it, you know, from the staff who are adjusting to working from home, many of whom are taking on additional caretaking responsibilities for children or loved ones or parents, neighbors, you know, and all the leaders of our city who had to dig deep and lead through a time of enormous stress and change. I think it's been a year of reckoning in our city, and it's a time where we each have to continue to reflect on our role in the systems that have created the outcomes we've seen this year. The death of George Floyd, the dramatic disparities in COVID impacts, in economic impacts, which have really just exacerbated longstanding issues in our city. And all of us are part of the system that has created those inequities. And all of us have to be part of the solution. So I've been really inspired by the ways that I've seen folks come together and really dig in. I know 2021 is going to continue that process of truth and reconciliation. We'll see recommendations coming forward on that specific process. We'll likely see a lot more information being shared publicly about how our systems are working or not to deliver the values that we all share. And I think we all have to be open, again, to our role in that. And I've been so inspired by each of you, my colleagues, in this process. You know, I know that it's been really hard in our community, and I know people are scared and frustrated and angry. I know council members are, you know, taking that all in. You know, I know council members are playing a role of leadership in the community and support that is different than in a normal time, and are also receiving rape threats and death threats. And, you know, there was a time where I didn't know we would make it through the year without one of you being harmed. It weighed on me so heavily. And I'm really grateful for all of you. I'm getting emotional because I know that, you know, there are disagreements, and I can even hear it in people's voices today, some of the, you know, frustrations or resentments, but I think that, you know, the way that we've been able to come together time and time again as a body is really a testament to each of you. And I care about each of you very deeply. So thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Carl.
Thank you, Madam President. With the council's indulgence, I know it's been a long meeting already, but it's a bittersweet moment. I'd like to take a chance to recognize a member of the clerk's office who will be leaving our team at the end of this year. Sybil McMillan has been a part of the clerk's office for 33 years. She began her service to the city on February 2nd, 1987, and she's been a steady presence in our office and at City Hall ever since. Her official job title is Council Information Specialist. And what that means is that she's part of the team that works diligently behind the scenes, without fanfare, without recognition, without applause, to review every single act that comes to and every action that is taken by the City Council. She proofs them, formats them, edits them, and she's responsible for publishing them as part of the official council proceedings. Again, the record we keep forever. And she's responsible for coordinating the publication of the city's code of ordinances, our local laws. She also does research in terms of the archives of past actions that we keep and the policies we make, both for policymakers, for city departments, and for the public. She takes inquiries through the clerk's website from the public and provides information and assistance on an endless variety of subjects. I often think of her as our own internal 311, just in the clerk's office. She assists the clerk's office front counter, delivers a number of services to the public there. In so many ways, Sybil is a part of the core fabric of our office. She exemplifies truly all that is best about the clerk's office. She is a true public servant, and we will miss her companionship immensely when she leaves. I know we'll struggle to fill the gaps that her retirement creates, but on this occasion, I wanted to publicly recognize her and to express, both on behalf of the council, my team, and myself, how much we appreciate her, how much we will miss her, and that we wish her happiness, reward, and comfort in her retirement and the new adventures that she pursues. So to Sybil, thank you so much. And you can start enjoying your retirement right after you finish processing this council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, and thank you for taking the time for that recognition. Any further announcements? Seeing none, we have completed all of the items on our agenda. That completes all of our business for the year, so we are adjourned for 2020. The next regular cycle of meetings begins on Tuesday, January 5th, with the Business Inspections, Housing, and Zoning Committee meeting that day. Thank you to everyone, and I hope you have a safe and healthy, peaceful holiday season. We are adjourned.